What's he doing? Has he gone mad? At least get yourself out of the way!
17, no! That's crazy! You don't have the power to hold back his attack! You have to get out of there now, 17!
You need help! Gamma Shield!
You'll have to keep fighting until we have a winner.
Fear Magneto!
You got them all!
Hello YouTube, it's Little Derek Comics back with another video, and today we are going to be talking about the anti-tank slash solo tanking meta. So I've seen a lot of discourse and a lot of comments, a lot of videos going around, just floating around about how it sucks to tank in Marvel Rivals right now, and the kind of solo tanking crisis. So I kind of wanted to chime in as somebody who is predominantly a tank player. My main three characters are Penny Parker, Rocket Raccoon, and Hulk respectively. Those are my top three, and they are all Lords. So I think I wanted to just talk about my experience tanking in the coming from like last season to this season. So first off, we are coming off of season 2 and season 2.5 going into season 3. And last season was pretty tough for the tanks with the, we're still kind of coming off of the triple heals and we're coming off of like the flyer meta. And it was especially hard for the Thing. If there were any Thing players, it was really rough. But, now they've kind of buffed the Thing, and I think that's a great idea. But there are a few things that make it especially frustrating to play tank, at this point in time. And I'm going to break them down into like 3 different segments with different roles, right? So the first role we're going to talk about is the tank itself, right? So what is the tank for, right? What is the main role of the tank? The tanks are basically what they sound like. They're vanguards. They take damage. The tanks block damage for the rest of the team. That's what they do. They have a lot of health. They can sustain a lot of damage. They are also good at protecting the team. They'll put up shields that can also, take damage and everything. They're good at peeling sometimes. And they have really diverse movesets. Like each of the tanks are just very different from one another. So yeah, that's some of the benefits of being a tank. And some of the downsides of being a tank are that you are a big target and you are kind of reliant upon your team. You kind of need heals. You can't heal yourself. And unlike, DPS, you're not that fast, so you can't just escape everything. A lot of the time, you might just die in the middle of a fight. It's very hard to escape as a tank a lot of the time, since you're kind of deep in the enemy lines and you're like the front line. And it can be hard to get kills as a tank. You're usually not expected to get kills. And that's one big issue of the tanks is that, when you're taking all this damage, who's going to take the damage for you? Like, usually it would be the other tank, but recently, especially in quick play matches, you are not going to have another tank. People will pick everything but a second tank. And I know, when it comes to quick play, everyone's like, oh, it's quick play. It's supposed to be. Listen, man, listen, I get it. And that's why I'm not going to rag on quick play too much, but it shouldn't be too much for me to expect to go into a quick play match and have a 2-2-2. You know how rare it is to get a 2-2-2 in quick play. But, even in the comp matches, especially last season, I've only played a few matches this season since it started, but like season 2 and 2.5, there were so many matches where they just expected me to solo tank. And it's just not fair to your tank players to expect them to take so much damage for the entire team. You know how much damage goes on throughout the game with 6 players on each team? Not having 2 tanks just makes the team have to work that much harder. It makes the solo tank have to work a lot harder. You are automatically in a position to where you have to be good with the tank to solo tank. And it doesn't really matter which tank it is. Like, I know Groot and Mag and Strange can be especially good when it comes to solo tanking, but they will almost always be better off with another tank. It's also harder for the DPS because it makes it harder for them to poke, and you know, they have to stick their head out more. They're more prone to damage because there's only one tank they could really hide behind, and that can absorb damage for them. And it makes it harder for the healers because now the tank has to do the job of what's essentially supposed to be two tanks. We have to peel, and we have to block incoming damage, and we have to put up shields and everything, and there's only so much damage that one tank can take. So without an extra tank to offset that extra damage that they're taking, it makes it especially hard for the tank players. But also, let's get into the DPSs, right? If you have what is usually going to be 3 DPSs when you only have a solo tank, it makes it extra hard. It's like, bro, theoretically, if there were 3 good DPS in the right situation, it could work. The thing about the DPS is half the time they're not great. Half of them go negative, or you know, don't have great stats. They might be 10 and 6 or something like that. And it's like, why are all of y'all on DPS when you don't have to be? It would be a lot easier for you to pick just any tank and go double tank than for you to get a 3rd DPS that you're halfway decent with. Like it's so much easier to go with a 2-2-2 than any other comp. That's what I'm trying to nail in here. But let me tell you what the worst one of all is, the most infuriating part of being a tank is, and that is having sorry healers. It's like, bro, I should, as the solo tank, I should be the #1 person getting heals. And between 2 healers, you would expect that I get some decent heals. But half the time, that's not the case. It's just like, I don't know where the heals are going. Sometimes they go to the DPS, right? But sometimes they don't. It's just like, what are y'all doing? How are you bad at healing? Your main job is to heal the tanks, and you're not doing that. And you know what's worse than having 2 bad healers? Having 3 of them. Okay, at least the DPS, when there's like 3 of them and they don't do what they're supposed to, they don't heal, they just kind of scatter like roaches. The 3 healers a lot of the time will congregate and just not heal. How are you, all 3 of you, bad at healing and not healing the tank? I am a solo tank. There's 3 of you. There's only 2 DPS. That math ain't mathing. You are half the team. There should be 1 for each person, dang near. Like, how are you not healing the tank with 3 different healers? I know sometimes the healers have to deal with things like Black Panther, Magic, Spider-Man in the backline, but sometimes they are non-existent. There is literally just a frontline army coming, and they're just not healing in the back. We're taking all this damage, and you're just chilling in the back, BSing. Like, what are you doing? And again, I know I'm ragging on all of the different roles, and all of the comps can kind of work in specific situations. And I think one of the great things about Marvel Rivals is that you have the ability to switch. But I think the safest thing is to at least start off with a 2-2-2 if you can. You know, that way you have the greatest likelihood of winning. Because I'll let you know right now, if you go 2-2-2, you are slated to win. The only way you're going to lose that probably is if you're going against another 2-2-2, and if you lose a battle that your team is 2-2-2 and the enemy team has a different comp, something's probably wrong with your teammates. I'm not gonna lie to you. Your DPS is probably negative or just doing poorly, or your healers aren't healing. I can guarantee you, look at any of your replays where you have a 2-2-2 and the enemy team has a different comp. I bet you something's wrong with the healers or the DPS. I guarantee you there was either trash DPS or just poor healing. I guarantee you. And sometimes it'll be 2-2-2 v 2-2-2, and you might just get outplayed. Sometimes you just get outplayed. It is what it is. But more often than not, that is the best way to win. It usually is. Plus, you're playing a risky game, making someone solo tank. I saw a match where we won, and the enemy team only had 1 tank, and they left. They left, and I don't entirely blame them because, like I said, that is kind of selfish to make 1 person take the full brunt of the entire team, especially if they didn't want to play tank in the first place. The least you could do is tank with them. So I've listed a lot of the problems that come with playing tank and why it hasn't been quite as fun in the recent seasons. But what are some solutions, right? First off, I think that there need to be more incentives to play tank, more rewards. A lot of the time when people will try new characters, they get, chrono tokens and things like that. And I think that the new missions that they've been giving are usually catered towards healers and vanguard. So I think that's a great start. I don't think buffs would necessarily be the way just because that will push solo tanking even more. I think that people need to work together with the tank so that each one can, shine rather than one tank being overly strong. But, one thing that does make it a little bit less interesting to play the tanks is that they don't really have that many active team ups. Like, they'll usually be like anchors and things like that, and they'll get the anchor bonus, which doesn't really mean anything across the board if you want to be honest with it. But, they do have some decent team ups. I think the group one with Rocket and Jeff is a little underrated. That is a very good damage reduction if you can use it right. And I also think, the gamma squids and everything are really well, but usually the anchor tanks, they don't really get much out of it themselves. So it's like, yeah, I help my team, but what do I get? And I think certain ones that this works really well with is the fastball special. I think that's a good one because it's kind of like a full interactive thing with the team, and the tanks kind of control it. I think that one's a really good one. I don't think that the Captain America and Bucky one is quite as fleshed out as it needs to be. I feel like it's a little clunky in my opinion. I feel like if Bucky went straight to Captain America rather than them meeting in the middle, that could make for some better combos. But I do like that it was implemented, and I think that makes it a little bit more interesting to play Captain America. But I think the best active out of all the tank team ups is the Penny and Rocket one. I'm so glad they added that one. The symbiote one was good, don't get me wrong, but this is like way better. It fits Penny. It helps her tank a lot better and keep the team safe. She covers a lot of space. She gets banned every match, but I think it's great, and I think there should be more active tank team ups like that. Because some people do find the tanks boring, and if they're not getting a special team up out of it to where they can do something cool, then that does make them less likely to want to play them. And, I would rather there be too many people trying to get tanks as opposed to no one's trying to get tank and they got to drag their feet to get tanks. I love playing tank, but I can play any role realistically. I can play healer, I can play DPS if I need to. I have no problem with it. I would much rather we have some decent tank players, and I think that would just be better in the long run for the game. One thing that I would kind of like to see is maybe some tank synergy. Maybe they're not team ups, but maybe they can kind of synergize with each other. So say Groot puts down a wall, maybe Hulk can put a gamma shield up to reinforce the wall, or he can put a gamma shield up to like protect Penny's nest or something like that. Maybe Penny could like hook her nests up to Groot walls and make them more dangerous or something like that. I think some of that would be cool, and it could be a bit dangerous, but that will also get more people to play tank, and I think that would be an interesting thing to see. Lastly, I want to say that they are teasing like a new competitive mode, and I don't know what this competitive mode is, but hopefully that's something that could also help the tanks. I know if it were something like, and I know people are gonna hate if it's role queue, I think that it's great that we don't have role queue, but I think having the comp we have now and a role queue that you can like choose between one of the two, I think that would be good for the overall kind of health of the game. It'll give people some options, and then that'll also have people go to tank. So I think that could be interesting. Or whatever they do with the competitive mode, if it caters to tanks, if it helps people play tank, I think that'll be good regardless of whatever it is. Yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts and how I feel about playing tank. I love playing tank. I wish that I was in more situations where I could play him, but sometimes I have to get on healer because the team comps just kind of suck. But, you know, let me know what you think. Do you love playing tank? Do you think it's been rough? Do you think people are tripping? Do you think tanks are complaining? Do you think we need a tank strike? Let me let me know all that in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.